Paul and Mike Novogratz and a few others are kind of at the center of this latest wave of bubble and scams that have come into so-called crypto space. And and as Greg has pointed out, the asset class that is Bitcoin is kind of shrugging it off, and it's not really having an impact on Bitcoin at all, really. Like it used to. Um, in days gone by, some of these major scams, like OneCoin, was from a few years ago, and others. They had more of an impact on the price of Bitcoin. And what boils my blood is that rejects from Wall Street, like Mike Novogratz, who was kind of a hedge fund reject. He fucked up his hedge fund. He walked away from the industry for a couple of years and saw an opportunity to recreate all the scammy shit he was doing on Wall Street in crypto. Or Raoul Powell is another Wall Street reject. I guess he wasn't given a partnership option, so he kind of went away and crawled into a cave for a while and saw an opportunity come into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is both the greatest and the worst industry in the world. It attracts the worst people in the world. It also attracts the greatest people in the world. And it's this dynamic that we call the smartest and greatest and noblest people in the world working on Bitcoin. You've also got the shittiest, worst, morally bankrupt scumbags in the industry as well. When you put them all together, you get a current price, which is whatever it is right now. Yeah, well, the guy Don Ho, or is it Do Kwon or Do Kwon? He had been involved in several scams before this one, and so this was just the latest in a series of scams, and it was designed as a scam. It's similar to BitConnect in its design as a scam, and it blew up like a scam. The people who, like again, Mike Novogratz, who didn't do any due diligence, is irresponsible. It goes beyond just being sloppy. I think it's bordering on the criminal. That he didn't do a shred of due diligence on this very obvious scam. I mean, Corey, of course, was tweeting about it before it blew up and saying, this thing is built to blow up. It's going to blow up, and it blew up. Same thing now with Celsius. Celsius, the more you dig into it, the more it's an obvious scam, and it's in the process of melting down. That's going to be another huge washout in the crypto space. But all of these cryptos are going to get blown out of the water. They're all technically securities anyway. The SEC is dragging their feet. We can ask ourselves why Gary Gensler is failing to do his job. Is he just another captured bank? But eventually, Bitcoin is so beautiful that it will push out these crooks, these charlatans, these captured regulators. And, there's no point in trying to sugarcoat it. These guys are recidivist criminal scumbags, and they deserve to be in prison. The fact that they're not in prison is a shame. Really, it shows that the justice system in America is broken down. But I think that's pretty obvious across the spectrum. We see this all the time. I would differentiate between Richard Hart and, let's say, Mike Novogratz and Raoul Powell. Richard Hart, when he launched the project he's involved with now, I remember quite clearly. It said on the cover page that this is a scam. This is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, and I was wondering what the point of that is. But he said up front, I guess it's to provide cover at some point.
Sure, that makes
legal
sense.
cover. But it said, I mean, he disclosed that it wasn't this isn't, I forget the language, but it said this is in fact a scam. I mean, it says so right on the cover page. So buyer beware. And again, he's coming from, it's a fairly small scale operation compared to, let's say, these two other guys like Novogratz, who's a Wall Street veteran. He's trafficking in billions of dollars. He cannot claim not to know what he's doing. As Corey pointed out, he's claiming that A, he both made money on the scam, and B, he was unaware that it was a scam. He can't have it both ways. But we live in a world like this now, where if you have regulators in your pocket, then there's no law that applies to you. I mean, that's been true on Wall Street for many years. I mean, Alan Greenspan talked about it. Right. Well, going back to long-term capital management. So this was a situation where Alan Greenspan, who was running the Fed at the time, lowered interest rates to bail out LTCM. And so all the pensioners in America had to collectively bail out these hedge fund guys in Greenwich, Connecticut, as Greg was saying, socialize the losses. And we saw that, of course, in 1987 when the plunge protection team was created. Again, Wall Street lunch was saved, but the losses were distributed to the masses, and the Wall Street was saved. We saw that in the 2008 subprime crisis. Again, the bankers were saved, and everyone else had to suffer. And we're seeing it right now. There's the crisis part two from 2008, and everyone who's on Wall Street and is a banker is getting bailed out, and everyone else is suffering from inflation, and everyone else is suffering from price distortions and social unrest. Again, it goes back to this idea of moral hazard, which is, again, the wiggle room. When the central bankers and Al Greenspan and others, or Ben Bernanke or Jay Powell says, we have the right to engage in moral hazard. We have the right to bypass ethics, morality, and the legal system to protect the functioning of these markets and to protect the liquidity of these markets. And what that's done is created an economy and a society based on fraudulent because of it's been commodified and securitized. All of banking obviously has been securitized and runs on a business model of fraud. The agricultural industry, the industrial industries, all of the sectors of the economy are tied to some degree to their cash desk where they squeeze out extra profits, engaging in fraud. It's just fraud. And as the dollar loses world reserve currency, Brady, the problem is that other countries are saying, you know what, maybe we don't need America. Maybe we don't need the US dollar. So in this crisis, the difference with this crisis, Brady, is that there's no coming back. The inflation we see now is not going to reverse. Gas is going to 10, 11, $12 a gallon, and it's not going down. Prices of food are going to go up on a permanent basis because the entire globalization of post-World War II is becoming unglued, and the dollar as world reserve currency is losing its cachet. And this is a new reality for America, really, since post World War II, where the standard of life is going to drop quite significantly because of all these bailouts. The chickens have finally come home to roost. Yeah, because this, on February 24th, Russia, which is the biggest commodity producer in the world, said "fuck you." And they said essentially that we're going to go from a financialized global economy to an economy that runs on commodities.
Right.
The price of commodities has been kept artificially cheap by the machinations of financialization and the central banks. And everybody was playing in this world, except for Russia. Russia was never part of the gang, never part of the cartel. It was always going in its own way. And on February 24th, after 20 years of expressing an interest to take a different path, finally Russia said, "You know what? Fuck you. We're not going to play this game anymore because we think your intentions are horrible. So we have a right to defend ourselves." And as a result, we are now in a new era, which is a multi-year secular, inflationary, commodity-driven global economy where money printing and the central banks become increasingly more powerless. Gold has a problem with price discovery we've discussed before. Bitcoin, the price is off its highs, but I think of it like this: when it was at 70,000 a coin, it was telegraphing the hyperinflation to come.